Hi, so this video is going to be an example lesson, and this lesson has a grammar focus. Of course, this lesson's not exactly the same as what it might be in a normal classroom, but I hope it gives you some ideas about activities and also sequencing steps for grammar teaching. Okay, so this lesson is aimed at teenagers and adults. It's kind of intermediate, could be advanced level if it was adapted slightly. The grammar focus here is comparatives and superlatives, and we've got some example sentences. Are computer games better than watching TV? Are you smarter than your parents? Who is the world's oldest person? Okay, so because this is kind of intermediate advanced, it's not just focused on the very basic kind of grammar structure, it's also putting this language into use. Okay, so during this example lesson, if you have a look at the green text on the slides, those give you some hints and clues about the purpose and reason for each step. Okay, so let's get started. So here is the warm-up activity. Let's compare. So what two computers can you see here? There's a Windows computer and an Apple MacBook computer. So let's compare these two computers. And I've got some example sentences here to help you. The Windows computer is than the Apple MacBook, and the Apple MacBook is than the Windows computer. If you look at the bottom, there are some example words that you could use: cheap, expensive, thin, light, good, convenient, and useful. Okay, so students get into pairs, brainstorm a few sentences, and then we come back together as a class and share the sentences that we made. Okay, so I've done this with a group of students before, and some of the sentences were like, Windows computer is cheaper than the Apple MacBook, the Apple MacBook is lighter than the Windows computer, and so on. Okay, more convenient, more useful, more expensive, those kind of words. Okay, so this is just kind of like a warm-up, something that students know and can easily answer, and it just gives you a chance to check that they've got the basic understanding of comparatives as well. Okay, but in this lesson, this is not like a kind of beginner or lower intermediate lesson. This is a lesson for a little bit higher level students. So we're going to move on now, and we're going to change the context using the same grammar though. So let's compare two places. Which one is Tokyo or Jeju? Okay, so we've got some examples words here: expensive, crowded, far, exciting, peaceful, and so on. Okay, so again, you can give students a few minutes and they come back and they can share their examples. So which one is more expensive, Tokyo or Jeju? Okay, probably Tokyo is more expensive than Jeju. Okay, which one is more peaceful, Tokyo or Jeju? The answer is probably Jeju is more peaceful than Tokyo. Okay, so notice I've also got the question form here, so we've expanded from just the basic sentence to including the question form. Okay, there's one more way of using comparison sentence at the bottom. Which one has better, Tokyo or Jeju? Which one has better shops, better restaurants, better hotels, and so on? Okay, so again, you can get students working in pairs, asking and answering, practicing with these expressions. Okay, so that's a little bit of scaffolding. Now let's move to giving more free practice. So what I want you to do now is choose two popular products, places, or foods, and compare. Okay, so here are some ideas. For example, you could compare different cosmetics company like Etude House and The Face Shop. So you can compare cosmetics. You could compare two big companies like LG and Samsung. Maybe you're into cars, so you might want to choose two brands or two models of car to compare. And you could maybe choose food. Okay, if you like food, you can compare two different types of food. Okay, so give a little bit of time to prepare and think of some examples, and in this preparation time, teacher can walk around the class checking the students, suggesting and helping where needed. and then we come together as a class. If the class is a large class, they could be sharing in kind of groups of 4 or 5 students, or if it's a small class, you could be sharing as a whole class. Okay, so we come back together and students share the expressions and the comparisons that they thought of. Okay, so there's some free practice. Now, here is like a form checking worksheet. Now, of course, because these are higher level students, we started with practice. Now we're doing the form checking. Okay, for lower level students, you might want to do the form as part of the scaffolding, but here I've put the form later on. So here's a simple worksheet where students have to write the comparative and the superlative form of these words. Okay, now some of these can be a little bit, they can be a mistake. They can be easy to make a mistake. For example, well. Okay, number 7, well, better, best. Number 10, far, further, furthest. Okay, so some of these are a little bit irregular, so it's a good idea to check those, just double check those after. Okay, so there's a form worksheet, and here is putting the language into practice, so applying the grammar. So very simple gap fill, but the gaps are specifically the grammar point that we're focusing on. So again, it's form practice, and notice I've given a couple of the answers just to start, just to make it clear. So it's a good idea to give some model example answers. Number 1, in Canada, January is colder than March. Number 2, I think that good health is more important than money. Okay, so notice that cold becomes colder, and important, we need to add more. Okay, so yeah, those example answers just important for kind of showing and exposing that. So give students some time, they can write the answers. If they're very high level students, you can just have them speaking the answers in pairs. And then after, if they've written the answers, they can check with their partner. Okay. Right, now, so we're moving forwards with comparative and superlatives. And this one is very communicative kind of activity, putting all of this language into practice. So here we have student A and student B questions, and students can choose maybe 4 or 5 questions from their worksheet. They don't show the questions, so they don't know what questions their partner's going to ask. But these are very kind of practical, realistic example questions that should be good for discussion. Okay, so a few examples on student A's worksheet. Number 1, which is more difficult to learn, English or your language? Number 2, what things are you better at than your best friend? Number 3, are people today luckier than they were 50 years ago? Number 4, is it better to study English in class or online? And so on. Okay, so yeah, these are very kind of open discussion questions, and it's given them lots of time to practice. You're encouraging use of the target grammar, but you're also not limiting it to the target grammar. This is kind of natural, real conversation, which is important for kind of intermediate to advanced students. Okay, so this activity could take quite a while. There's a lot of discussion. You can have students in groups. If you have a lot of time, you could reorganize the group so they have one partner at the beginning and then you reorganize with new partners. You can also bring the class together at the end and go through some of the questions and have kind of responses from the whole class, a little bit of discussion, disagreement, and so on. Okay, so that's free practice to kind of finish off that main stage. Okay, but actually the final one of this is just kind of like a fun quiz. I took these from Guinness Book of Records, which you may know is a book that kind of it keeps a track of the biggest, the longest, the tallest, and so on. So here are some of the world's records held by people according to Guinness Book of Records. So let's try this quiz. Number 1, the widest mouth belongs to Francisco Domingo Joaquin from Angola, and it measures, okay, so you have students guessing, maybe teams, they have to guess what they think is a right answer. Number 2, Pauline Potter was confirmed as the world's heaviest living woman. How much does she weigh? Again, you have them guessing. And number 3, Bessie Cooper is the world's oldest living person. She lives in Georgia, USA, and she is how old? Okay, so what you could do with this is get students to guess their answers and then write down all the team names and make a record of their answers, and then you can find out who got the correct answers. So the correct answers are A for the first one, C for the second one, and C for the third one. Okay, and again, this is the next part of the quiz. So the longest nose on a living person measures from the bridge to the tip. Okay, how long does it measure? A, B, C, or D? Number 5, the tallest man is Sultan Kozan. How tall is he? And number 6, the smallest waist belongs to Kathy Jung. Okay, again, this is just a little bit of kind of fun quiz. Have students record their answers, and then you can go through. The answers are B and D and A. Okay, and final task to finish off, a little bit of research for the students. This is very easy now that everybody has smartphones. Find an amazing fact online about the fastest or biggest or tallest, etc., and share it with your partner. Or we could make a quiz. Okay, so that's putting the language into practice. Okay, so I hope this lesson has given you some ideas about how to practice comparative and superlative with higher level students. And notice that there was different contexts, different scaffolding, different communication activities, different classroom organisation, lots of opportunities for kind of groups and teams and so on. Okay, so I hope that gave you some nice ideas. Thank you very much.